Well, Happy New Year and Merry Christmas if you celebrated Christmas. We celebrate Christmas in the loosest form. I mean, we don't see it as a religious holiday, but, it's time for family and friends. Because we know Christ wasn't born on December 25th, may have been incarnated on December 25th. It's possible, maybe. But I hope everything went well. Let me show you the gift I got because earlier last year, my sister took up painting. So guess what we all got who were on her list? Yeah. That's called Fire in the Forest. I have to find a place to hang that, of course, now in the house. Which, I could use because if you notice, it's a little more bare than it was last time. Remember there were a couple of wood and metal deer over here? Well, they were in quarantine. I had brought them into the country. They were in bric-a-brac quarantine, and they passed, and now they're running free. There they are, doing their thing, much happier. And you may also notice that the mirror that was kind of leaning up against the wall for 6 months, waiting for me to hang it in the entryway, it got hung. Some of you don't believe it. Some of you actually are so cynical that you think I just moved the mirror a foot or two further down that way so it's out of camera shot and I didn't really do anything. Well, how bad are you going to feel when I show you this shot? Yeah, there it is, perfectly hung. Took 6 months to really plan that out. By the way, those candles, not Catholic candles, okay? Here's a picture of a Catholic candle. Those are not Catholic candles. As a matter of fact, I asked the lady at the bric-a-brac store about the candles. I said, these candles aren't designed to be used in some sort of occult ritual or some sort of incantation or ceremony, are they? And she said, no, just don't light 2 of them and then leave 1 unlit. I said, well, what will happen if I did that? She said, something will enter your house and light the 3rd candle. And that something is very difficult to remove from your house as it'll take up residency inside your walls. And I said, well, that's pretty easy to avoid. I just won't light 2 of them and leave 1 unlit, wrap them up. So there they are. All right, I want to talk about 2022 because that's the year that's got laid in our lap. That's the next time segment we're looking at. Will we move on in some direction? Oh, yeah, well, we will. Really, this is kind of a speculation as to which direction we're going to move. Well, this time next year, we look back on 2022 and go, yeah, it was more of a return to normal. I don't think that. But if it is, then we've got to reassess where we are. If we move on, take the next step in 2022, then it may be a strong indication of where we are, and I want to talk about that. 11/11. I began this channel with that because I had 4 incredible months seeing 11/11. I didn't know until the 3rd month that many other people around the world also had the same experience, and I was able to decode it to mean 2020. That someone had mentioned to me that maybe 11/11 is referring to the Hebrew alphabet, which has 22 letters. I saw that the 11th letter in the original Hebrew alphabet looked a lot like 11/11. Its value was 20. The letter is Kaf. Its value today is still 20. Therefore, 11/11 could very well be decoded as 2020. Well, you can also decode 11/11. People have asked, well, people are still seeing 11/11, Stan, so what do you think? Well, I think there's more than one decode in 11/11. Maybe there's one for 2022. I can get 2022 out of 11/11. 2-step process. First, take 111, apply it to the Hebrew alphabet, the letter Kaf, its value is 20. Then, second step, take the 2 11s, add them together, 2022. Is that from God? I have absolutely no idea if it is. It could be, I guess. I don't have the same confidence in that I had about 2020, but it may be. But regardless of whether or not 11/11 can be decoded for 2022, 2022 could still be a year of end times emphasis and a beginning into maybe the 7-year tribulation. A lot of people I've seen around various places say, well, I think we're already in the tribulation. Really? Really? You know what I think that's like? It'd be like if I took you to a high school football game here in Texas, which is doubtful because I've never been myself. But if I did, and you leaned over to me and said, we're at the Super Bowl. No, you're going to know when you're at the Super Bowl. And you're going to know when you're in the tribulation. I don't believe we're in the tribulation. I believe we are in the run-up for the tribulation. But what I want to know is this year going to be the beginning of the tribulation? So we want to take a look at some interesting possibilities regarding 2022. And I'm not even going to really include the 1111 decode possibility. I'm just not. Even though I honestly, to be fair, I could not decode 1111 and get 2023 or 2024, but you sure can get 2022. You know, if you think it's reasonable that God would put that in there, then go ahead and use it. But I'm not. I think the next couple of things I want to show you are more interesting. The first one is an experience that Dr. Tom Horn had a year or two ago. Now, anytime somebody has an experience that they say was from God, well, really kind of like me saying, I believe that God showed me 1111, along with maybe a couple of million other people, maybe more than that. But you, if you didn't experience that, it's more difficult for you to have a high confidence about whether or not God sent it. And the same is true for us when we look at Tom Horn's experience. Was it from God? I'll tell you this. If Tom Horn's experience is from God, then God just dropped a huge clue about the end times. But if Tom Horn was deceived and the source was not God, then his experience is worthless. It's either priceless or it's worthless. Here's what I know about Tom Horn. He would not lie to us. He's not perfect, but I have come over the years in reading and watching and listening to interviews and seeing the people who surround him. I think he's a quality guy. He would never lie. He would never make up an experience and try to sell it to us. Our job is it from God? Because it could be priceless. You may or may not know the story. A couple of years ago, I believe it was a couple of years ago, he has a dream. It was so vivid that, excuse me, allergies. I don't have COVID, it's allergies. It was so vivid that he said the dream was really more like a vision. And in the vision, he sees the world being destroyed. He's horrified, he's terrified, along with the people on planet Earth who are living it. And he has taken around the world and shown that this is a worldwide event. Quickly, of course, he acknowledged that he had to be shown the day of the Lord. That's what he was being shown, the day of the Lord. And when he woke up, he was so disturbed by it that he got up and just walked around the house and tried to process what he had just seen. And in the process of doing that and asking the various questions, why did I see that? What will cause this? When will this happen? All of the questions any of us would ask, he suddenly heard a voice. It was like it leaned over and whispered in his ear audibly, not in his head, audibly. Now, honestly, if I'd had that dream and something whispered in my ear, I would begin moving toward the gun drawer. I would. But the word that was whispered to him was Apophis. He hadn't heard the word before. I hadn't heard the word when I first heard his story. So he jumped on the computer, and it turns out Apophis is a rather large asteroid that's headed our way. It is due on April 13th, 2029. Now, if that's what God was showing him, then that means 2022 will begin the final 7 years. 2022 would have to be the first year if there is a 7-year tribulation. I think there's a very good chance that there is a 7-year period, and that means 2022 would begin it if Tom Horn rightly is interpreting what he saw and heard. And then we have to add to it the mystery question, was the source of it from God? If it is from God, then he just laid a huge clue in our laps that he is aligning Apophis. He is connecting Apophis with the destructive dream that Tom Horn saw. And I think it's very natural for Tom Horn to go, look, it's due, and the flyby, it is going to squeak by planet Earth on April 13th, 2029, according to NASA. And they've been a little cagey with their estimations about Apophis. It would take very little to move Apophis into that window where it falls into the gravitational pull of Earth. Now, I have two other possible interpretations of what might be going on. But let's leave Apophis for now, and we'll come back to it here in a moment. I want to turn now to Dr. Ken Johnson, true scholar, great Christian, and has devoted many years to studying the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Essenes. If you ever get a chance to hear him interviewed, it will not be a dry interview. It will be full of very interesting facts. Like, for instance, he is almost certain that John the Baptist was an Essene. He certainly lived in that kind of secluded lifestyle the Essenes lived. They didn't like the Pharisees. They stayed out of Jerusalem. They didn't like the Pharisees. They didn't like what they taught, and they didn't like their calendar. The Essenes were an early adopter of Jesus of Nazareth as the Messiah because they accurately predicted the coming of the Messiah. According to Dr. Johnson, they have accurately predicted numerous things that have come true. One of the, by the way, an interesting thing that I mentioned, and I heard him say in an interview recently, was that one of the Dead Sea Scrolls, but it's a story inside the Dead Sea Scrolls, is that Jesus, prior to his ministry, came out to the colony where the Essenes lived and taught them. Wouldn't that be something? Now, they had a school of prophets that anybody could go to. I think it was a 3-year course. Men, women, Jew, Gentiles could come out and live with them for 3 years and be then a student in the school of prophets. They didn't teach you how to be a prophet. They taught you what the prophet said. I can tell you this, had I gone to the school of prophets, my 3 years would have been much better spent than this 3 years that I spent here at Stephen F. Austin State University, because I doubt that the school of prophets had fraternities and affiliations with sororities and beer busts. Yeah, I would have gotten a lot more out of the school of prophets than I ever got out of Stephen F. Austin. Anyway, the Essenes have a day picked out in the future. They picked this out, well, I don't know, a couple of thousand years ago. And the year that they pick out that they believe is going to be very important for end times is the year 2025. They believe that is the beginning of the final Jubilee. And what better way to begin that final Jubilee than to reclaim the earth, since our Lord is the title deed holder, and begin the various things that need to take place, including the marriage supper of the Lamb, the New Jerusalem, and the millennial kingdom. But what's interesting about 2025 is it's 3.5 years, at some point in 2025, 3.5 years after 2022, and 3.5 years before 2029. So the Essenes just happen to pick a year that is the midpoint in that 2022-2029 time frame. If there's anything to it at all, they pick the year that would mark the midpoint of the tribulation. Kind of interesting. But let's get back to Apophis, because there are two other things that I want to bring to your attention that may or may not be a valid interpretation. Because I saw something, and I don't like this first one. I don't like it, but to not bring it up would be inappropriate on my part. In studying Apophis, I noted that it comes by on April 13th, 2029. It returns 7 years later to the day, April 13th, 2036. So it has a 7-year time frame. So if God is pointing us to Apophis, could he be pointing us to that time frame? Not the 2022-2029 time frame, but unfortunately the 2029-2036 time frame that he begins and ends with Apophis, arriving on the exact same day, April 13th, both times. And the flyby on April 36 or rather 2036, is even closer to the earth than the flyby in 2029. That would mean that 2022 wouldn't be the first year of the final 7 years. It would be the first year of the final 14, which means we'd be here for another 7-year run-up. I don't like that because I already see what's going on in the world. I don't want to see 7 more years of their nonsense before we get to the big show. So I don't like that idea that he's using Apophis to frame the 7-year tribulation, but it is possible. However, there's another possible interpretation of that I thought about. What if God is saying, I can make 2029 the final year. I can make 2029 what Tom Horn saw in his dream. I can make that happen in 2029, or I can make it happen in 2036. He has options. We have seen him speed up and delay things throughout the scriptures. He is willing to do that because he can make things happen the way he wants to with options available to him. This would keep all of us unsure of what exactly Apophis is going, what role and when it's going to play it. It also keeps the enemy from knowing exactly what day the day of the Lord is going to fall on. And maybe it also depends on how much his church is praying for his return. He could make it as soon as beginning in 2022, as beginning the 7-year tribulation, or he can delay it 7 years. Maybe we play a role in this with the even so come Lord Jesus that we see throughout the book of Revelation. We see the idea of the church and the holy ones praying for his return. I think it's time to start taking that very seriously. If we want a 2029 day of the Lord and a possible rapture in 2022, maybe we should take that very seriously. Thanks for watching. This is total speculation, but I know this. We'll find out very soon what 2022 is made of. 1 year from today, I do not think I'll be looking into that camera and going, well, 2022 was a big nothing burger, wasn't it? I don't think that'll be the case. We won't have long to wait. Thanks for watching.